Your absence is their punishment, psychology tricks. One day they'll remember you, not because you stayed, but because you left. A man's silence is louder than any goodbye. When a man withdraws his presence, it is a weakness. It's the final act of strength. Because love doesn't end with shouting or tears. It dies quietly, the moment appreciation fades, when respect is forgotten, and when your effort becomes invisible. Men don't leave out of rage. They leave after countless chances, after waiting for change that never came. And when they finally walk away, they don't announce it, they simply stop showing up. That's when absence becomes the teacher. It holds up a mirror, forcing them to see the truth they once ignored. Because in love, what is taken for granted today becomes what is missed the most tomorrow. Your absence isn't a punishment, it's their consequence. You didn't vanish to hurt them. They hurt because they finally understand what your presence was worth. 1. Familiarity breeds blindness. Familiarity is a silent thief that sneaks into relationships, stealing passion while pretending to offer peace. The human mind, so brilliant yet so blind, adapts to what it repeatedly sees. That's why the man who once made her heart race eventually becomes part of the scenery. His voice, his touch, his presence, once electric, fade into background noise. This isn't because love died, it's because the brain stopped seeing what it already owns. Psychology tricks remind us that value thrives in rarity, not repetition. Female psychology is a paradox. She craves stability, but is moved by mystery. When a man becomes predictable, he stops being seen. His loyalty becomes assumed, his devotion taken for granted, his kindness unnoticed. Be warned, her mind doesn't measure love by how often you're there, it measures it by how deeply she feels your absence. That's how the magic flips. One day you stop calling, and suddenly the silence screams louder than your words ever did. The same woman who scrolled past your texts without replying now checks her phone and wonders why it's so quiet. That's not coincidence, it's psychology tricks in motion. When emotional oxygen is withdrawn, the air gets thinner. The laughter she once forced turns hollow. The warmth she ignored starts to haunt her. Don't misunderstand, she didn't stop loving you. She simply stopped noticing you. And that blindness, born from overexposure, is the cruelest illusion love can create. The truth is simple but profound. Familiarity breeds blindness, absence restores sight. In the art of how to fall in love and stay in love, distance isn't a weapon, it's a mirror. It shows her what she forgot to appreciate. So don't chase. Don't beg. Be the man who knows that silence can speak louder than affection. Withdraw gracefully and let your absence do the talking. That's when she'll remember. That's when she'll feel. That's when the regret blooms. Because the female psychology isn't built to miss the man who stays, it's built to long for the one who walked away. Be wise enough to understand that consistency wins hearts, but space keeps them curious. In love, presence makes her comfortable, but absence makes her ache. That is how you remind her what she once saw so clearly, that you are never ordinary. Never let yourself become invisible through overexposure. Be rare. Be missed. Be unforgettable. And remember, sometimes the most powerful move isn't showing up. It's stepping back and letting her eyes adjust to the darkness you leave behind. 2. The ego mistakes kindness for weakness. Men, listen carefully. This lesson is a quiet thunder. It doesn't roar, but it shakes the ground beneath you. Many women and people in general mistake calmness for submission. They see a man who forgives easily, listens deeply, avoids drama, and they don't always feel safe. Sometimes they feel powerful. That's right, your patience, your peace, your restraint. It makes their ego believe they can take more. But remember this, the ego is a greedy child. It craves control. It wants to test. It wants to see how far it can push. When you respond to disrespect with patience, her ego starts whispering, he'll stay. He'll tolerate it. He needs me more than I need him. Not because she's cruel, but because the human mind confuses peace with weakness. It's not malice. It's subconscious conditioning. So she tests boundaries. You stay. She pushes further. You still stay. And little by little, your strength becomes invisible. She forgets that your calmness is power. She stops seeing the masculine energy behind your silence. She forgets that you're a high-value man who chooses peace, not a man too afraid to fight. Then, one day, you're gone. The phone goes unanswered. The door is closed. The reflection disappears. And in that stillness, her ego collapses. Because dominance is meaningless without someone to dominate, your absence becomes her punishment. The silence screams louder than any argument ever could. That's the power of a man who walks away with grace. That's the high-value man who knows his worth, who attracts women not by chasing, but by not participating in games. Your calmness was never weakness. It was control, discipline, masculine energy in its purest form. Understand this deeply. A woman may admire a strong man, but she only respects the one who holds his boundaries. Be kind, but not compliant. Be patient, but not passive. Forgive, but don't forget who you are. Don't explain your value. Don't argue for your dignity. Don't stay where peace costs your pride. Be the man who makes silence sacred. Be the man who doesn't react, who responds with distance, not drama. Because the moment you walk away, everything shifts. She finally realizes you weren't the weak one. You were the calm one. And calm men, once done, never return. That's what it means to embody true masculine energy. That's what it means to be a high-value man. The one who doesn't need to shout to be heard because his silence echoes in her memory forever. So remember, your absence isn't revenge. It's revelation. It teaches the lesson your presence could not. Be that man. Be the calm. Be the storm she never saw coming. If you found this powerful, like, share, and subscribe for more psychological insights and wisdom about self-worth and emotional strength. Speech balloon comment to remember, my calmness is my power. 3. The mind values what it fears losing. The mind values what it fears losing. That is old Stoic wisdom. Men, listen carefully. This isn't just psychology, it's power. When you are always available, you become invisible. When you pull back, you become unforgettable. As Marcus Aurelius said, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. And nothing sharpens the mind more than absence. Your absence is not weakness, it's strategy. The human brain is wired to chase what it cannot have. Psychologists call it the scarcity effect, but the Stoics knew this centuries ago. Scarcity breeds value. When you were always there, loving, giving, protecting, she believed it was forever. She thought your presence was guaranteed. But when you walk away with that iron mind, when your energy is gone, her emotions ignite. Suddenly, she remembers every detail she ignored, the sound of your footsteps, your laughter, the warmth of your hand during conflict. Those moments return like echoes because loss turns memory into obsession. The pain of absence creates meaning. Don't fight that, use it. That is Stoicism win. You must understand, your silence is louder than your words. Your distance is more powerful than your arguments. Let her mind do the work. Let her imagination become your ally. When you stop chasing, you start commanding. As Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. Master your emotions. Withdraw your energy with intention. Control the battlefield by doing nothing. That's how real men move, calm, disciplined, untouchable. Don't beg. Don't explain. Don't justify. Walk away with dignity and let time work in your favor. In modern life, where attention is currency and everyone is desperate for validation, the man who doesn't need attention becomes a king. Be that man. The iron mind wins because it refuses to react. While she wonders, you build. While she rewinds memories, you evolve. While she doubts, you grow stronger. That's the Stoicism win. Remember, absence is not rejection, it's revelation. It reveals who truly values you when you are no longer accessible. It separates the genuine from the temporary. You must internalize this truth. Your absence teaches more than your presence ever could. Your energy is sacred. Don't waste it trying to prove your worth. Let others feel the weight of losing it. As Seneca said, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. That is your path, self-mastery, discipline, control. Let your silence be your message. Let your peace be your power. Let your absence be the lesson. In a world full of noise, be the man who says less but means more. In a society that glorifies constant availability, learn the art of withdrawal. That's how you command respect. That's how you win. Remember, men, the mind values what it fears losing. Be the man worth losing. Be the lesson she never forgets. That's old Stoic wisdom. That's the iron mind. That's how you rise, and that's how you win. 4. Absence destroys illusion. Control looks like devotion until you stop feeding it. Don't confuse their need to manage your moods with love. Be blunt with yourself. Some people don't want partnership. They want predictability. That is the quiet hook, routine responses, familiar drama, guaranteed callbacks. They study your tells like a card shark, rehearse lines to trigger you, and keep score by how fast you repair the mess they made. You must see the pattern for what it is. Control is a soft addiction, and your reactions are the drug. When you go still, the supply chain breaks. At first, they wait for your text, the apology, the proof you're still orbiting. It doesn't arrive. They post bait to stir jealousy. You don't fight. They triangulate through friends. You remain calm and unreachable. Confusion shows up, then anger, then fear. That is the order because your absence doesn't punish their body. It punctures their story. It tells the truth without a speech. It pulls the plug on the theater where they always win. Don't negotiate with the need to be managed. Don't sprint back to fix feelings you didn't break. Be deliberate. Be scarce. Be consistent. Here's the deeper layer most men miss. You aren't withholding love. You're refusing to perform. The difference is moral weight. Performance says, teach me the lines and I'll say them. Presence says, stand with me as equals or stand elsewhere. If you've spent years reflexively restoring peace, your silence will feel violent. It isn't. It's oxygen for your backbone. That is the psychological switch. When reaction stops, reflection starts, and the mirror is merciless. They will meet their own immaturity, their emotional dependence, and that counterfeit superiority that only survived because you kept feeding it certainty. You must let the mirror do its work. Don't narrate. Don't rescue. Don't reopen the case with long texts and footnotes. Let the evidence sit. If they truly wanted love, they'll do the hard thing, own their part, adjust their behavior, rebuild trust brick by brick without demanding your applause. If they wanted control, they'll do the familiar thing, blame, minimize, shop for a new audience. Either way, your clarity wins. And yes, people will call what I'm saying psychology tricks, but that's lazy language. The point isn't tricks, the point is truth. Understanding female psychology isn't a deck of hacks, it's noticing what respect looks like when the show ends. If you've been Googling how to fall in love like it's a recipe, notice how often the advice is really about managing the other person's weather. Don't. Weather changes. Character holds. If you want a sturdier compass than so-called psychology tricks, make these rules non-negotiable. Don't reward chaos. Don't argue with insults. Don't audition for affection. Be kind, but be brief. Be open, but be anchored. Be available to respect, not to constant reassurance. That is how you stop buying illusions at full price. And while the internet sells female psychology, like magic beans, remember, the best reading of another person begins with a frank reading of yourself. You must ask, what part of me needs to be needed? What part of me believes love is only real if I'm fixing something? If you crave control, you'll attract control. If you practice steadiness, you'll filter for steadiness. That is the practical side of learning how to fall in love without losing your dignity. Quiet boundaries, consistent actions, no fireworks required. Absence, used wisely, is not cruelty, it's calibration. It marks where your self-respect lives. It signals, I won't compete with my own peace. And the result is as simple as it is profound. The person who cared more about controlling you than connecting with you will feel the full consequence of your silence. Not because you're running psychology tricks, but because you finally stopped volunteering for a role that made you small. Understand this, and female psychology becomes less of a puzzle and more of a conversation between equals. Understand this, and the question of how to fall in love turns from tactics to character. You must hold that line. Don't flinch. Be the man who can walk away from a stage that doesn't deserve his voice, and you won't have to shout to be heard. Your absence will say everything that needs to be said. If this message hit home, like the video, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe for more psychological insights. Speech balloon comment to remember: silence exposes what manipulation hides. 5. Emotional detachment is the final form of power. Revenge might feed the ego, but detachment heals the soul. Most men believe closure comes when she finally regrets losing them or when she hears their side of the story. But real closure doesn't come from her apology, it comes from your indifference. True closure happens when you simply stop caring whether she ever understands what she lost. Don't seek validation. Be the calm after the storm. That's what a high-value man does. Emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's when you stop chasing answers and start protecting your peace. It's when your masculine energy shifts from reaction to control. You stop checking her socials, stop wondering who she's with, stop rehearsing the conversation you'd have if she called. You're no longer trying to prove your worth to someone who couldn't see it. You've stopped competing with another man and realized the only battle that ever mattered was with your own need to be understood. And when that need dies, you become free. That's power. Freedom is the real flex. Freedom is being able to look back and feel nothing, no anger, no bitterness, no desire to explain. You stop asking why and you start saying whatever. You stop trying to make her regret and instead, you make peace your priority. And that's when something incredible happens. Your absence becomes her punishment. The less you care, the more she feels it. The less you chase, the more she notices the silence. Because nothing crushes a fragile ego faster than realizing the one they thought they could control now feels absolutely nothing. That's the quiet dominance of a high-value man. Your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. What she truly misses isn't your body, it's your emotional presence. It's your energy, your attention, your stability. When you pull that back, she feels the void not because you've disappeared, but because the emotional anchor she once relied on is gone. And here's the twist: you didn't take it away to hurt her. You took it back to heal yourself. That's what real men do. They don't beg for validation, they reclaim their power. That's masculine energy at its highest form. Detachment isn't about ignoring her. It's about choosing yourself. It's when your happiness no longer depends on her reaction. It's when you stop proving and start being. It's when your life becomes the proof of your growth. Don't be bitter. Be better. Don't react. Respond with silence. Don't chase. Replace. That's how you attract women who value your presence instead of testing your patience. Once a man masters detachment, he becomes unshakable. He doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't compete for love. He doesn't trade his peace for temporary pleasure. When a man truly reclaims his emotional control, he steps fully into his masculine energy and never gives it away again. That's emotional maturity. That's real confidence. That's power. Remember this: your absence isn't punishment, it's evolution. It's the quiet proof that you've grown beyond her reach, that you've become too focused, too grounded, and too at peace to be pulled back into the chaos you once called love. And that, my friend, is the moment you become untouchable. The moment you stop being a man who reacts and start being the man who leads. The high-value man who attracts women not through words, but through silence. Because the man who masters detachment doesn't lose anything, he gains everything. 6. Memory is the mind's way of begging for what it lost. When you walk away, you don't just leave, you withdraw your power. Your absence becomes the echo she can't silence. You take with you every rhythm, every ritual, every trace of the comfort she once took for granted. The truth is, human memory is a master manipulator. It doesn't remember the arguments. It remembers your laughter. It doesn't replay the cold silence, it replays your warmth. It hides the boredom, edits out the pain, and amplifies the tenderness she dismissed when she thought you'd never leave. That's not love anymore. That's selective nostalgia. It's the brain's trick, the mind's way of begging for what it lost. As the old Stoic wisdom reminds us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca knew this centuries ago. Memory is not your enemy, but it's not your friend either. Your absence becomes her teacher. Every time she tries to move on, the mind betrays her. It replays your voice, your smile, the weight of your hand guiding her through a crowd. And though she tries to replace you, she's haunted, not by you, but by the version of you her mind has built to protect itself from regret. You have become untouchable. You've become the ghost she chases, not because you haunt her, but because she haunts herself with the memory of who you were. This is power, silent, controlled, unspoken power. The kind of power that comes only from discipline, from restraint, from understanding that true strength doesn't beg to be seen. It lets the silence speak. That is Stoicism win. That is an iron mind. Every man who leaves with dignity leaves a psychological imprint. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to chase, explain, or remind. The resonance of your absence speaks louder than any words ever could. It's not revenge, it's resonance. The deeper you once loved, the deeper that resonance vibrates. Your silence becomes her noise. Your distance becomes her obsession. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. So don't fight. Don't explain. Don't seek validation. Stand still and let time prove your worth. Modern life tests this principle every day. In a world where people broadcast their emotions online, where weakness is mistaken for authenticity and attention is currency, restraint has become rare. But you're not common. You don't post your pain. You don't perform your heartbreak. You embody old Stoic wisdom. You master the art of absence. Because a man who can walk away without bitterness holds the strongest position. The man with an iron mind wins, always. Your stillness intimidates. Your peace unsettles. That is Stoicism win. Don't give them the show they want. Don't chase closure. Create it within yourself. Don't explain why you left. Let your silence explain everything. That is control. That is mastery. Let the world wonder, while you move forward with the unshakable calm of a man who knows his value. You must remember this. When you stop trying to prove your worth proves itself. Your absence becomes your statement. Your detachment becomes your armor. And your peace becomes your victory. Let them feel the loss of your energy. Let them remember your presence not with bitterness, but with longing. Because the man who walks away with grace doesn't lose, he transforms. His memory grows stronger not because he demands it, but because he earned it through authenticity, discipline, and quiet power. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior, said Confucius. Conquer your emotions. Master your reactions. Own your silence. So remember this. Don't run back to what broke you just because it remembers you fondly. Don't answer nostalgia's call. It's a trap built from illusion. The past is gone, and that is your advantage. Live forward. Think like a Stoic. Feel like a warrior. Move like a man who understands that your absence, your calm, your restraint, your silence is the loudest message you'll ever send. That is old Stoic wisdom. That is how you win. That is an iron mind. If you find today's content useful to you, don't forget to share your feelings and lessons with us. Or simply comment, "Very cool." It's a great encouragement for our channel makers. Thank you very much. 7. Comparison is the unseen punishment. Comparison is the quiet sentence nobody sees coming, and your absence is the judge's gavel. When a woman loses a man with emotional depth, the mind rushes to patch the hole with a new face, new jokes, new weekend plans. Because the brain hates a vacuum and loves a quick fix, but don't mistake speed for substance. Neural wiring doesn't replace emotional energy. It sorts and ranks it, and that is where the unseen punishment begins. She doesn't move on, she measures. At first, she will pitch herself a story. This one is more fun, more spontaneous, more her type. The highlight reel looks great on a phone screen and even better to her friends. Yet once the novelty hangover hits, the details start telling the truth. Your steadiness in conflict, your ability to listen without rushing to solve, the way you spoke calmly when she spun herself into a storm, the way you gave space without disappearing, and the way you kept your word on small things like calling after a long day. Be honest. That is the stuff that cannot be copied, because chemistry can be charmed, but character must be built. And here's a bit of female psychology you should know. The mind doesn't miss people, it misses the feeling it had around them. Which is why every new date becomes a mirror that reflects what's missing rather than a door to what's next. And even the best rebound can't counterfeit emotional safety. The warm certainty she felt when your presence said you're safe without any slogan or song. Psychology tricks are not magic spells. Don't try to pull rabbits out of hats. Yet understanding how comparison works is one of the oldest psychology tricks in the book. Because when you stop chasing, the silence turns into a measurement tool. And every laugh she shares with someone new becomes a reminder of the laughter she shrugged off. Every comfortable quiet becomes a reminder of your peaceful quiet, the kind that didn't need filling with noise. You must recognize that your composure was not just a vibe, it was a shelter, and shelters are only fully appreciated when the weather turns. She will test the new person's edges, how they carry stress, how they handle a late apology, how they react when plans change, how they listen when she's tired, how they treat the waitress, how they behave on the third bad day in a row, and each test invites another comparison she didn't plan to run. Don't gloat and don't be cruel, because dignity is its own amplifier and bitterness. Ruins the lesson. Be scarce, not petty. Be precise, not performative. That is how to fall in love with your own standards again, and paradoxically, that is how to fall in love in the future with someone who actually meets them in the long run. Female psychology favors reality over fantasy, and the reality is this. The emotional safety you provided is rare because it is earned, not advertised. The brain, busy with its spreadsheets of memories, will keep flagging the irreplaceable, your restraint when angry, your humor when tired, your patience with silence, the way you owned your mistakes without making them her job to fix, and regret doesn't slam the door. It seeps in, slow and certain, reminding her that what she thought was replaceable was actually what made everything else work. Don't weaponize this truth, but do respect it, because the mature move is to let the natural comparison do what it always does, sort signal from noise. Be the man who stops arguing his value and simply lives it. That is the difference between leverage and manipulation. Psychology tricks used well are just clarity in disguise, and the clearest thing here is simple. She isn't punished because she can't find a date. She is punished because she can't find you in any date, and while she scrolls, the algorithm of her experience quietly pushes your qualities to the top of the feed: integrity, composure, reliability, because in female psychology, safety is the ultimate attraction and the only antidote to regret. You must keep building the life that made you centered in the first place, because that is the part she truly misjudged, and that is the part the next person worthy of you will treasure. Don't chase applause. Don't audition for roles you've already outgrown. Don't explain what time will explain better. Be the standard, and let comparison be the messenger. If you ever wondered how to fall in love after loss, start here. Fall in love with your boundaries, with your mission, with your peace, because that is what made you rare. That is why she compares, and that is why every new conversation, every almost right smile, every near-miss echo of your presence becomes a gentle, relentless reminder. In the end, your absence doesn't make her lonely, it makes her honest. And that is the quiet, exact punishment of comparison, the one that arrives without a scene, stays without permission, and leaves her wishing she had valued what she now can't replace. Call it one of the cleanest psychology tricks. Call it a lesson in female psychology. Call it the roadmap for how to fall in love with your own life again. But whatever you call it, don't forget the rule. Be the man you'd compare every other man to, and let the rest of the world sort itself out. 8. Emotional dependence is the shadow of control. Many men confuse control with confidence. They believe that being able to manipulate a woman emotionally means they're powerful. But the truth is different. Control isn't power, it's dependency in disguise. When you need her to react, you've already surrendered your strength. You've placed your emotions in her hands, and that's not masculine energy. That's weakness wearing a mask of dominance. When she could make you angry, jealous, or frustrated, she felt alive. Your reactions were her proof that she mattered. Your emotions were her validation. It wasn't love she craved, it was control. She fed on the energy you gave her each time you lost your cool. But when you stopped reacting, everything changed. You didn't fight back. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You simply became still, and that silence hit her harder than any argument ever could. Your calm broke her illusion of power. This is what psychologists call emotional withdrawal shock, the storm that follows when someone loses the emotional supply they were feeding on. Now she scrolls through your messages, searching for the comfort your silence took away. She wants to trigger you again, to make you react, to feel that spark of control. But nothing happens. You've become untriggerable. And that's when she realizes something she never wanted to face. She never controlled you. You controlled yourself. And that kind of self-control breaks her completely. A high-value man knows this truth deep in his bones. He doesn't chase. He doesn't argue for attention. He doesn't seek validation from emotional chaos. His power lies in restraint, not reaction. His masculine energy radiates through calm confidence, not loud control. He understands one of the most powerful psychological tricks in relationships. Your absence is their punishment. When you pull away with strength, not anger, you create emotional distance, and that distance becomes magnetic. That's how you truly attract women. Not by fighting for attention, but by commanding it through presence, discipline, and self-respect. Don't seek control. Command respect. Don't manipulate emotions. Master your own. The high-value man doesn't demand loyalty. He earns it. He doesn't cling for attention. He becomes the man whose silence says everything. When you master your emotions, you master the relationship. When you stop reacting, you stop bleeding energy. And when you walk away with calm certainty, you become unforgettable. That is masculine energy at its finest, quiet, confident, grounded. That is how you attract women not through drama, but through power that speaks in silence. So don't try to control her. Control yourself. Because the man who cannot be shaken is the man she can never forget. If you've learned to stay calm when someone tries to control you, you've already won. Because silence isn't weakness, it's power. Comment below with this truth. I control myself, and that's my strength. 9. Growth is born in absence. When a man walks away, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. He doesn't leave because he stopped caring. He leaves because he finally started caring about himself. That is the essence of self-respect. That is Old Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Understand this truth. Real growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in silence, in distance, in absence. Absence is not a void, it's a forge. It burns away illusions, exposes weakness, and refines the man into something stronger. When you step back, you give both yourself and the other person the space to face reality. For you, the silence becomes a sanctuary for rebuilding your iron mind. For her, that same silence becomes a mirror reflecting every truth she avoided when you were near. Don't chase. Don't beg. Don't explain. Let absence speak your strength. You must master the art of withdrawal. That is Stoicism win, controlling what you can and releasing what you can't. In a world that glorifies constant connection, disconnection becomes power. The man who can detach wins. The man who can walk away owns the battlefield of life. The hardest walk you can make, said Steve Mirabile, is the walk you make alone, but that's where you become the strongest. Your absence is not punishment, it's transformation. It's your rebirth. When you pull away, you rebuild mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You rediscover the man you were before love became your cage. You remember that love without respect is not love, it's dependency. You realize that giving endlessly to those who take without gratitude drains your soul. So, stop trying to prove your worth to those who never valued it. That is your lesson. That is your victory. Let her face herself. Let her wonder why the silence feels so loud. Let her confront the truth that your presence once protected her from. That is her lesson, not your burden. Don't interrupt her realization. Don't soften her discomfort. That's the psychology trick. They only understand value when it's gone. Your absence becomes her punishment, but your peace becomes your power. You must embrace the discipline of distance. That's the Stoic's weapon: unshakable calm, unbreakable control, an iron mind. Don't look back. Don't apologize for walking away from what disrespected you. Life rewards the man who can delay reaction, who can withhold emotion, who can sit in silence and smile at chaos. Remember, absence is not loss, it's leverage. Pain is not defeat, it's data. Use it. Learn from it. Rise from it. Every heartbreak is a classroom. Every silence is a test of your strength. That is how Stoicism wins. That is how men are forged. Let the world misjudge you. Let them say you've changed. You have, and that's the point. You've evolved from emotional to intentional. You've turned pain into purpose and silence into strength. Don't crave validation. Seek mastery. Control your emotions, and you control your destiny. As Seneca said, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. So, walk with dignity. Walk with purpose. Walk with that old Stoic wisdom burning inside you. Remember, absence doesn't just punish others, it purifies you. It builds the iron mind. It makes you unstoppable. Be that man. The man who chooses peace over chaos. The man who lets go wins. The man who understands that sometimes the greatest act of power is silence. 10. Neutrality is the apex of power. The real power doesn't come from rage or heartbreak, it comes from calm indifference. The most dangerous man isn't the one who shouts, argues, or tries to prove something. It's the one who simply doesn't react. That's not coldness, that's control. When you reach that point where her name doesn't sting anymore, where her absence doesn't twist your gut, and where memories feel like an old movie you once enjoyed but no longer live inside, that's mastery. That's emotional neutrality, the peak of psychological strength. And here's the psychology trick: anger still means you care. Sadness still means you're tied to her. But when you feel nothing, no need to explain, no craving to be seen, no hope that she'll get it, you've stepped into freedom. That's what female psychology doesn't expect. She's wired to get reactions, to feed on emotion. When she gets silence instead of drama, detachment instead of pleading, that's when she starts questioning herself. That's how to fall in love, not by chasing, but by making your peace irresistible. Don't try to erase her from your story. Be the man who accepts that it happened, learns from it, and then calmly walks forward. You don't delete, you evolve. You don't hate, you understand. That's what real strength looks like. Stop chasing people who walked away. Stop explaining yourself to those who already made their judgment. You must stop needing closure, because the closure happened the moment your peace became louder than your pain. That silence? It's not revenge. It's redemption. It's the final act of power in the psychology of love, where she realizes that your absence is her punishment. No words, no fight, no final message needed. Just space, wide, quiet, and unbothered. That's what burns deepest. The man who learns this psychology trick doesn't manipulate, he masters himself. He learns that women fall in love not with the man who tries too hard, but with the one who could have her and still chooses peace. Be that man. Be still. Be unmoved. That is freedom. That is strength. That is how to fall in love with yourself so deeply that no one's leaving can break you again. Remember, in female psychology, emotion is currency, and when you stop paying, she goes bankrupt. Your silence becomes your sharpest weapon, your neutrality the crown you wear without trying. You didn't lose her. You found you. And that, my friend, is the ultimate psychology trick, the art of turning heartbreak into indifference and indifference into power. All right, brother, if this message hit home for you, take a deep breath. You've done your part. Now it's time to do right by yourself. Remember, peace isn't found by fixing others. It's found by finally choosing yourself. So keep your head high, keep your heart clean, and keep walking forward. Your silence, your growth, that's your message now. Take care of yourself, stay strong, and keep building your peace. See you in the next one, brother.